My name is Phil DiCollegiero. I am the Executive Director of the Amesbury Chamber of Commerce, and you're joining the Economic Development Committee, organized by members of the Amesbury Chamber of Commerce to get information about our community from business leaders, elected leaders, and advocacy organizations out to the broader community about some of the exciting things available to Amesbury businesses and things happening with businesses in the Amesbury community. Thank you to Bob Jones from the Newburyport Bank for helping organize today's call.
Good morning. My name is Bob Jones. I'm a Vice President of Commercial Lending in Newburyport for the Newburyport Bank, and it is our pleasure to be able to sponsor this program today. And also I'd like to thank Mayor Gove for being here today and giving us an update on what's happening in Amesbury, which, as you can see and I can see, is a tremendous amount of activity going on, all good stuff, helping the small businesses in the community with this COVID problem that we've been having. Newburyport Bank is extremely supportive of the businesses in the community. We have been supportive for years and years. We have two branches, one on Main Street and one on Friend Street, and we will continue to support the community as I've worked in this area for over 40 years, so I know it very well, and I am a native of the area, so I have a very vested interest in making sure that the businesses survive and prosper in this community. And again, thank you very much.
Thank you, Bob, and to the Newburyport Bank for co-sponsoring today's discussion. I'd also like to thank our other two co-sponsors, North Shore Realty Group and Energy Source. Together with Newburyport Bank, these three businesses have made the Amesbury Chamber's Economic Development Speaker Series possible, and we're grateful for that partnership.
Today we're joined by Amesbury's Mayor, Kassandra Gove, to provide us with an update on what's happening at City Hall and her perspective about economic development in the city moving forward. Mayor Gove, thank you for joining us.
Thanks, Bill. I'm going to share my screen. I think I have the ability to do that. Oh, it says I'm disabled.
Nope, you should be all set now.
There we go. Okay. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, very good. We don't actually use Zoom, so thanks for having me. I do have just a few very brief slides to talk about our economic development strategy at the city, and I have my Director of Economic Development, Community Economic Development with us, Angie Cleveland, and she may jump in at some point and help answer questions. I don't expect this to knock your socks off. Our approach is really back to basics. Our sort of observation coming in was that we've spread ourselves really thin across the city with a lot of different projects, but not really dedicated the time and energy to the depth of the project. And we're just not equipped for that approach with our staffing or financially. So we needed to go back to really connecting the dots and paying attention to the little things that can help us be successful with a real strategic plan and help us feel like we're not building the plane and flying it to every time we're doing something. So the three pillars that we've sort of identified that we bring ourselves back to all the time are one, to revisit and revise our internal processes, two, to embrace comprehensive planning, and three, to engage in outside resources. So the first, they are to revisit and revise internal processes. And I hope as I go through this for all of you, again, I don't expect it to blow your socks off, but that at some point you think, yeah, I've had that experience, or I've thought about that, and that does make sense. So the first one here, for revisit and revise internal processes, it's really important to me that the city be business friendly for entrepreneurs and for folks who are bringing their business here. And by that, I mean the city departments, not sort of the community at large. I think that businesses are attracted to Amesbury. I think they want to come here, but I think they hit our city departments and it gets really cumbersome and difficult and confusing. We have antiquated bylaws, conflicting ordinances, some that are published, some that aren't, some that they learn along the way. We have fee structures that need to be analyzed and addressed. We have actually just gotten a community compact grant to do a fee analysis. We just don't have a clear entry and exit to our permitting and development process. And right now, you could start at any one of 3 or more offices, and then have some detours along the way, and you could have a very different experience depending on where you started. So we need to really figure that out, realign things and review that process, and then digitize it. We need to meet our entrepreneurs where they are, realize that they have a very busy life. When they think about what they need from the city is when they need to get that answer, the answer to that question, or they need to solve that problem. We need to be available to them and meet them where they are. So what we're looking for is standardization, consistency, and predictability. And right now, I don't think that we are there. So these are some of the things that we are working on and restructuring within our departments, our boards, and our staffing. Some of the things we are doing are actually physically relocating 3 departments, 3 or 4 departments. We are moving to an online permitting software, and reorging a lot of things. So the next is embracing comprehensive planning. It's really important that we don't get distracted by, I call them big shiny things, at the detriment of our residents and the infrastructure that is serving the folks who are already here. A few good examples of that are the new school that was proposed and being permitted without a sidewalk. That to me is just not a good comprehensive plan. Looking at a hotel or a big development in an area that has a failing sewer infrastructure, and requests for the waiving of fees or neglecting that infrastructure when we know that it's already failing the residents and the businesses in that area. Those are good examples of poor plans and things that we just can't allow to move forward. So again, physically relocating and restructuring some of our departments, bringing DPW into the fold much earlier, and ensuring that this is a very collaborative process and that we are forward thinking is really important. Again, bringing us back to the basics and starting somewhere with something like a parking study for the downtown, paying attention to the businesses that we already have before we try to really add a lot of new ones. Now, certainly new developments are going to come our way, but we want to, again, approach it with a really comprehensive plan, ask all the right questions, and make sure we're taking care of our own and who's here now. We want to talk to the property owners who are here and get their input, and what are we missing? What has their experience been like? Who do they go to? Who do they go around? Where do they get their answers? Right? What is that like now? So it's really important to collaborate with the people who are here, and just avoid the fits and starts that we've seen on so many projects where we have a lot of loose ends, sort of that lack of visioning and planning, and that we go through that depth of each project rather than, again, spreading ourselves really thin. There is a piece in here about COVID-19 and sort of rediscovering Amesbury. I don't think we can overlook that, and that planning, community and economic development and planning in regards to COVID-19 will certainly shift. We've seen a lot of conversations about that, and how people are, working from home, and do they need physical space anymore for their business? The need for outdoor public spaces is changing. Our ability to expedite processes that before used to take months. And just what new habits to plan for. So those are all things to consider and bring into the conversations that we're having. And the last one is to engage outside resources. Obviously, at the city, we're experiencing limited resources as many others are, and we have to leverage partnerships. We have been great at leveraging regional partnerships, and we have a real opportunity to do that. We have already, since January, been designated as a housing choice community. We are now eligible for specific grants. We got the CDBG CV grant for small businesses because of COVID-19, and will increase our partnerships with the Merrimack Valley Planning Commission. So the alphabet soup of agencies that you have heard, you will hear a lot more about. We will be doing more with them. There are a lot of opportunities out there, a lot of grants and technical assistance opportunities, which there's one there about real estate for master planning in the Lower Mill Yard. So Angie's been a great resource for tapping into some of those. Has a really good knowledge base for that, but those are some of the things that we can leverage to, again, reduce the burden on the taxpayers and sort of initiate the economic growth that we're looking for. So again, just sort of some of the basics and sort of where we are, and it's a lot of things, I think Angie will talk about, and we'll be looking for your experience and feedback and collaboration on. And I hope it feels a little bit different, but that's just sort of a baseline for you. So I'll stop sharing and then I'll take questions. And I'll let Angie jump in if she wants to jump in too.
I have a question.
Yeah.
You mentioned something a while ago that I thought was really terrific, which was when somebody wants to do a new project, they would be able to schedule a meeting with the committees or the department heads or whatever it is that they would need to coordinate with. And then what would happen is that would allow them to get a baseline of what's required and then move forward.
Yeah.
Is that part of what you're talking about? Because that's really terrific. What an efficient thought.
Yeah. Angie, do you want to talk about the online permitting software and what that's going to be like and allow us to do?
Absolutely. Excuse me, I'm running a little late today, so I'm in the car, but I actually did a lot of research with both my peers in neighboring communities, as well as exploring the different softwares that are out there to see what their capabilities were. But really, yeah, again, as Kassandra is saying, is coming back to basics. We really needed something that was going to, from the beginning of the circle to the end of the circle, lay out what the process is for someone who wants to develop a house or, add on to their house, or simply, or all the way to our, a Cadillac project of Maples Crossing. And so internally, it allows us to assign different people that are associated with the steps with that project, all the way to allowing this to be a transparent process on the outside. So for example, I got a call yesterday from someone asking what the status of Maples Crossing is. And although we are trying to be as transparent as we can through our website, it is a little bit of a quagmire right now. We have a lot of projects up there, and Maples Crossing has changed names a couple of times, and so it might not be as easy for folks to navigate. And so through this process, they can literally see what the steps are, whether it's in planning or it's still before conservation or they're still waiting for building permits, which is the case for Maples Crossing, in addition to some other things. But it allows that window into the project that's very clear, instead of it being kind of muddied or confusing, for that matter. But the project management piece of it is going to be the biggest key. So it's not that back and forth ping pong game, the hot potato game that both internally and externally people experience when they come to Amesbury. So it really literally will be a step-by-step process, and nothing can happen until that next process is done.
Okay, terrific. So that means that the software, when you apply for a permit, would then connect you with the people that you would need to speak with all at once? Is that how that would work? Or you would?
Absolutely.
Okay,
yep.
Great.
It wouldn't necessarily take the people out of the function. So I'm glad you mentioned that, because we still are going to be very much available. That with any project, we encourage people to have a conversation with us, especially if they're new to Amesbury or new to this process in general, whatever they might be doing. Again, whether it's large or small, for a homeowner, it's really important for us to walk them through the process because may never have stepped foot in City Hall before. So having those conversations and being people oriented is definitely still going to be part of our MO. We're not going to remove that from the equation. We're very much customer service oriented, but this allows for that 24/7 access. If they're a work, even if they're not working from home, but still are busy until 7 o'clock at night, even on a Thursday when we're open, they can go online at midnight and apply for their permits, and then there can be follow-up calls or discussions as needed. But that conceptual meeting, especially for the larger projects, is going to be both necessary and in some cases required, just so that we can literally walk through the project with them.
Thanks, Angie.
Thank you.
So, good morning, Cassandra, or should I refer to you as Miss Mayor? I'm sorry.
Sandra's fine.
All right. So, interestingly enough, I had a conversation with somebody a few weeks ago, and it was in regards to the hotel that is scheduled to go in at the end of Elm Street, and how that's kind of gotten mixed messages, and there was a TIF put in front of the city council, and almost every one of the city council members voted against it, and there was no pushback from the mayor's office to try to get this thing going again. And the comment was, oh yeah, well, Mayor Gove, she's anti-development. She doesn't want to see Amesbury grow anymore. And I was like, well, listen, I've worked with her at the chamber for years, and it was nothing but pro-development. And, let's get this stuff moving. So I was kind of surprised to hear that comment, but based on what I've seen in your presentation, that might lead to some of the misunderstanding where you're trying to get a handle on some of the permitting processes. And, I heard you mention something about failing, sewer in a hotel area. And, if that information isn't out there, then I see how it's perceived that Amesbury is anti-development.
Yeah, it is really important for us to change that narrative. And, Amesbury is open for business. That's my background. That's why I'm in the seat that I'm in now, because I was really concerned about how rocky the experience was for our businesses to come to Amesbury. And what's important to me is that we do it right, literally from the ground up. And that's why I mentioned the infrastructure, and we have so much neglected infrastructure, and it's the improvements of that are being shouldered by our taxpayers. So as we work with developers, we need them to be really good partners and want to be here. And the TIF proposal that we had, it was not a complete proposal, and we're still really working with that developer and hoping we can come back with a new proposal. And so, we do have to iron out the wrinkles in things, and this is going to be new for folks. Unfortunately, the ones who are already in the process, sort of like that one, it is going to be a little bumpy. They may be used to doing it one way, and we're going to really try to do it a new way so that we don't miss things, and we don't let things slip by that are really crucial to the future of our community. We have to fix our infrastructure, and we need everyone to be part of that.
Yeah, no, I absolutely hear you. And then, that conversation kind of bled into the Maples Crossing conversation. And I just said, look, there's a lot of moving parts going on up there. There's, you've got, on top of everything, you've got the pandemic. And who in their right mind would build a facility that nobody can go to? So number one, I'm sure that had reasons why things have slowed down. But then I said, there's been changes in the entrance to the facility. They bought the sports park for reasons. There's still some permits that need to be obtained. There's a lot of reasons why that development hasn't started yet. But, again, it's some of the comments are, well, yeah, you hear nothing out of City Hall. So because you hear nothing, then it lends people to believe that you're trying to push these things away.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. I think all of the things you just said are true. It's been hard for developers to manage their time during the pandemic. There's been a lot of movement on Maples Crossing, but it has been behind the scenes. They did purchase a different property, and it did change their plans and effectively start their process over. They had to do everything again. We've actually ended up sort of ahead of their schedule with our developments on South Hunt Road, where we are doing the expansion and all that development really because of the development we're expecting from them. So we've ended up ahead of their schedule and are looking for information from them. And we don't have a lot of control over private developers. So there's a lot of things that people look for from us about, with updates on developments that we don't have the details on, and really it's not our business. And, that's sort of my perspective on it. There's a level, and I think that comes from my experience at the chamber. There's a level of confidentiality in people's business lives that doesn't need to be in headlines. And I just feel really strongly about that. And I won't put it out there. There's things people are working on. There's a lot of players involved in some of these big developments, and things take time. So, we meet with these developers a lot of them every other week at this point. So we know what's going on, and we're confident that they're moving forward, but people can call us. We'll have a lot better access to, the updates when we have a digital permitting software. But again, Angie and I and her team, we are having these regular meetings and we talk to these folks, but if they're not putting the information out there, I'm not going to do it for them.
Yeah, no, I hear you. I remember when I was chairman of the zoning board, and I think it might have been Mayor Keyser, but I don't really remember. But anyway, it was Dale Bell, and her position was permit coordinator for the city. And much like what you're trying to do, it was, you go in and you meet with Dale, and Dale puts you into the proper channels where you need to go. And it was a really great process. A lot of people really, really liked it. And I was sorry to see that go. So I'm glad to hear that, even if it's an online version, it gives people a little bit better idea of where you need to go, because the frustration level for people when they got in front of the zoning board, and I said to them, well, you don't have a complete application. You need to do, this, this, and this. And they'd look at me like, what the hell are you talking about? I'm looking to you guys for direction. I don't know what I'm doing. And if you're not directing me, it's the frustration level is really high.
It is high. And that happens at all of our boards and all of our commissions. And, it's anyone from a property owner who wants to put a deck on to these big developers. And that's where the hamster wheel starts, and the hot potato that Angie said, and literally and physically being, thrown around and tossed back and forth between departments. And that's where I say, it is not a business friendly environment. We're really trying to work on that. And so I think we have a lot of things going on that are really going to make that difference for us.
Good. Well, I've hogged enough of your time. I'll let other people speak.
And we do have Bob Lavoie, who has raised his hand, the chairman of our chamber. Bob, thanks for joining us.
Oh, you're welcome. Welcome, Mayor Gove. Pleasure to have you here. So far, you've enlightened a lot of us with a lot of information, because, here it is September already. And with the pandemic, everyone's had 6 or 5 months chopped out of their social and interactive life. So it's great that we're going to be starting to do this. So sort of I have 3 questions if people don't mind. So first, I read about the bill for money to move staff to South Hunt Road, and I think you mentioned that in some of your comments. Can you let us know which departments are going to end up there?
Yep. So one of the first things that I heard, one of the first things I did actually before January, before me taking office, was I met with every department head. And one of the things that was resounding from all department heads was that their space was too tight. They were out of space. They had staff in multiple buildings. The director sat here, but their staff sat here. And when you think about the way things were sort of falling through the cracks and people were getting bounced around, that made a lot of sense. So we really needed to get people into the right space, and the departments who should be working together in the same space. So looking at, and this is maybe my real estate background, my space planning, looking at the spaces we owned and the buildings we had. DPW is, again, a really integral piece to this development and these projects, and they had a large building with very few people in it. So, and then we also had an Ordway building on School Street, if you're familiar with that building, which was rapidly falling apart and needed a lot of assistance. So we're taking some of the departments from the Ordway building, which are inspections, a really key piece of this circle, this planning circle. So we have inspections, which is the commissioner, the plumbing and the electrical inspector, and they have a clerk. The health inspector of the health department is over there. The public health nurse was in the senior center, so we're pulling the health nurse to be in the health department. They're all going over, so that takes the first floor of the Ordway building, as well as the conservation agent who was on the first floor of that Ordway building. He's going over as well. And then from City Hall, we're taking the economic development office. So Napoon, Kayla, Joni, and Angie are all going over as well. So you'll have economic development, planning, conservation, health, and inspections with DPW. And those are really all of the stops on that circle that you would make if you were getting a permit. And so if you went into that building and they said, no, you need this department, you don't actually have to drive across town, run around the block. They can all talk to you together, and you can all, have a conversation at once.
Yeah, that would be a refreshing change because, my career is basically economic development, real estate. And a number of towns like Andover and North Andover, they've consolidated that economic development office just the way you're proposing. So I look forward to it.
Yeah, I do too.
So as people generally know, I was on the city council for 12 years. So I don't call it unfinished business, but one of my goals that hadn't yet been achieved dealt with the adaptive reuse of Allen's truck stop. So I know it was out for surplusing. Any public update that can be made available?
Yep, it was voted and approved to be surplused, and the next step would be going to the surplus committee, I'm going to call it. It's had a couple different names. I don't know what it is now. And so what we did was we went back and reviewed the bylaws for that committee that had been established, and it was set up in a way, and you'll be familiar with this, Bob, but there would be sort of a standing committee, and then there would be these additional committee members pulled in based on the property. But the standing committee hasn't actually been meeting. There really hasn't been a standing committee. It would be like they would just sort of be waiting for us to throw properties at them. So we have submitted a bill to reestablish that committee as a one-time. It would only be established per property,
right.
And then it would dissolve. So we've just sort of resubmitted that, and we're waiting for that to be approved, and then we'll establish that committee and they'll review Trader Allen's.
That's great. Yeah, I mean, the classic example is the Horace Mann School. Right. I mean, just how long that took. And
Right.
I think people are delighted, with ultimately what happened, but to have it take 10 years is not really acceptable.
Yeah, and that's really why I started Trader Allen's. I think when that first one sort of hit headlines, again, everyone really wanted to know what was going on, and frankly, that was what I was looking at with Horace Mann. If it's going to take 10 years, why are we waiting? We're already seeing development in that area. Let's start the process. And see what happens. So that was really why we got started.
Great. And I'll just finish, one other comment on, Allen's is, again, part of my economic development day job involves environment and brownfields, and, the local legend or urban legend, is, oh my God, that's so contaminated. But between the state and the city, that property got cleaned up years ago. And there may still be some residual challenges, but, again, with Angie's background, I think, if in the due diligence or whatever of a new developer, something pops up, we seem to be well positioned to get it back into productive use and on the tax rolls.
Yeah. Yeah. MVPC is involved in that site.
Great. Well, thank you very much for coming this morning.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Mayor. And so if there are any final questions the mayor's pretty accessible. She's just a couple blocks away from our own office and has never been shy about jumping onto our meetings or Zooms. So we can certainly, if she's willing, have you come back, Mayor. Any final questions this morning? If not, I want to say on behalf of the Amesbury Chamber and the Economic Development Committee, Mayor Gove, thank you for joining us, and to Newburyport Bank for helping organize this as well. Look forward to having you back and for more great things as you navigate this unprecedented time.
Anytime. Thanks for having me. It was good to see you all again.
Likewise.
Thanks for coming. Thank you.
Thank you.